Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey peeps, today we're going to take a look at Flag Dash from Peacekeeper Games. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, before we go any further, you need to know that I did a paid preview for this game not too long ago. I think it was only like 5-6 months ago, something to that effect, earlier this year. That was when it was about to be on Kickstarter. If you're not familiar with my paid previews, they are just that. They are me telling you about the game, showing you how the game plays with a prototype version of the game, and then just telling you what's interesting about it and letting you make up your own mind about it. But now I have the full and final production version of the game, and I'm going to give you my full and honest opinion about it at the end of this video. But in the meantime, Flag Dash is exactly what it says, basically. It's a flag football game where you and the other players play in teams, 2 to 4 players, although you can play 2 versus 1, which is we did one of the times that I played with one player just taking control of 2 characters and so forth, where you're just trying to either capture the opponent's flag or you're trying to capture a flag from each of your opponent's team members. It's 3-on-3 characters, essentially. And one player is also one team member is also a defender on each side. The way that you're doing this is actually through programmed actions. You're programming different cards and also programming tokens that tell you when those cards pop and also give you different special abilities. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with the final production version. So everything you see here is final. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Flag Dash is a competitive team-based game for 2 to 4 players. Ideally, 2 players will be on each team. If you play with less than 4 players, players will have to take control of extra characters. There are 2 potential ways to win the game for your team. Grab the opposing team's flag and drag it into your territory, or have one character grab a personal flag from each of the opposing team's characters. Every player takes a screen, a set of action cards, and a set of priority tokens. Also, each team gets a set of 3 characters, either randomly or by some sort of choice. Each character has 2 flag tokens of their character's color, 3 spots for opposing flags, and 2 spots for boost tokens. Each player controls one character who is called a runner and has a special power. Blue can jump over characters and obstacles. Yellow can dig extra holes or close old ones. Purple can use spy priority tokens and see what your opponent is planning ahead of time. Green can set traps to stall other characters. Black can lasso characters to pull them towards him. And Orange can scare characters away with her cat priority token. Some of these abilities give those players an extra card to add to their action cards. One character on each team is a defender, whose card is flipped over to indicate that they have no special power and can't use the flag action. The 2 players on a team share communal control of the defender. The double-sided game board is placed out. Every character has a meeple that is placed out to the game board in the standard setup, mirroring the other team's placement. The defender is placed initially in front of the team flag. There is also other terrain out on the field. Walls must be circumvented and holes connect to each other. Gameplay variants allow you to put out decoy flags and cones signifying scoring zones. The other side of the board also gives you a different field to play on. The game takes place in phases. The first phase is planning. Every player plans out 2 moves for their character using the action cards in face-down position. Place 1 forward to indicate which will activate first. 4 of the cards are movement, letting you move 1 space up, down, left, and right relative to your position on the field. 1 of the cards is push, which enables you to push another character 2 spaces away and make them drop your team's flag if they've grabbed it. There's a flag card that lets you pick up a team flag or swipe a personal flag from an opposing team member you haven't taken one from yet. The final card is copy, which, if played second, will copy the first card that's been played. Next, you will plan out the priority tokens by placing them face down on top of your planned cards. This is how you determine the order in which each action is carried out. There are tokens numbered from 1 to 7. The lower the number, the faster your card will activate before the other players. Some tokens give you bonuses, like extra card activations, letting you play an additional card, or giving your character boost tokens. On subsequent turns, these can be used to give you 1 free movement square. The slowest token, the 7, also lets you reset all of your tokens. While cards reset back to your hand every round automatically during the cleanup phase, tokens do not unless you take this action. Once everyone has locked in their cards and tokens, everyone flips their tokens on the first cards only. Then, resolve them according to number order, with ties going to the team with the tiebreaker token. Then you do the same for the second card and token combo. This repeats until one team has met one of the objectives. One of the sad things about rating and reviewing games is that if I could only rate and review a game based on its ideas and concepts, it would be a whole different ballgame, and there'd be a lot of good reviews out there. But sadly, I can't do that. While Flag Dash has a lot of interesting ideas, I have to look at the implementation of those ideas, and that's where the game stumbles quite drastically. Let's start with the components of the game. They're actually very underwhelming and disappointing. I mean, look, it's a very small game. It's not intended to take up a large footprint, but nevertheless, the board is supremely underwhelming. It just looks very bland. There's not a lot going on. You can put a couple of walls out, and there are some variants that let you put like traffic cones out and things like that, but it's still just not all that interesting. The idea of it being flag football is the interesting concept here, but it's they tried to be a little bit too realistic with it, I think. It almost feels like for this kind of game, if you really want it to be very interesting and to keep the audience's attention, it should be like something really silly and goofy and maybe even like fantasy flag football. But this adheres very strictly to, hey, this would be like if you played it in real life. And so the environments are bland, there's not a lot going on, and it really shows. The meeples as well, I get it, people like meeples, people like it when meeples are weird. These look like blobs of kind of nothing. They vaguely resemble the players, the characters. And yes, you can stick the flag into the meeples, but honestly, I think standees would have been better to more easily tell them apart at a glance. That was a minor quibble, but it is something to note. Other than that, I guess the character art is fine. But moving on to the different elements of the game. Aside from the theme, and I don't play flag football, but I thought it was a very interesting idea for a game if it was implemented well. I also thought it was interesting that the program's movement was a two-tiered system, where you put forth the card that you want to play first, and then you've got a second one that you back up. But then it's like 2 rounds, because then you're also front-loading tokens, which tell you how those are going to pop, and also different special abilities, like giving you charge tokens, or giving you extra cards to play, or copying cards, or, well, that's what the cards do. There's just all these different things interacting with each other, and it sounds great on paper. In practice, it's incredibly cumbersome and boring. And that's a huge problem for a game that is supposed to be very light, very fast, very fun, and very easy to get into. It's not that it is difficult to learn by any means, but actually sitting down to play, it's like, okay, I gotta program this card, and then I gotta put the token, I gotta do that twice, and then my teammates gotta do it, and then I gotta wait for them. And then if you are in the unfortunate position, and we did this once, and should not have done it, where it's 1 versus 2, where you're having to program 2 sets of actions, that's even more aggravating, and it slows things down even more. So this is really a 4-player game. Which makes it even weirder that it's not like perhaps a 6-player game as well. And even as a 4-player game, it just feels very bogged down. So now it's like, okay, flip your tokens. Who's going first? Okay, now activate your thing. And then you gotta wait for them to think about their actions. It's simultaneously programming the cards, but then waiting for everyone to activate their actions and see what everyone does. And for a game that is supposed to be about flag football, where everyone's running around frantically and trying to grab the flags and ripping them off of other people and pushing them and shoving them and using their special abilities, which don't feel that important in this game and are very out of whack as far as power levels, it just feels like for all these things that should be going on thematically, it's not exciting at all. It just feels like kind of a chore. And that's like the number one game killer, is for something to feel like work. I never felt engaged. I never felt like, I can't wait till it's my turn again. I was like, can we just get to my turn so we can get this over with? So, unfortunately, that is what I feel about Flag Dash. Great concepts, great theme, interesting idea with programming the cards and then programming the tokens on top of them, but it plays out very clunky, very tedious, very fiddly. Powers are just too out of whack. Digging holes is way better than, say, jumping over someone. It's just all over the place and not terribly fun. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.